And we're live.
What's going on, peeps? I'm back. I'm back. I'm Keenan. I'm one of your hosts of Top to Bottom. Becc, did you miss me?
Did I miss you in the last week?
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Good answer, Becc.
Of course.
Good answer.
But Will was fun. He was a lovely guest. Guest.
Of course.
Of course we miss you.
How can any guest not be lovely compared to me? And Becc, do you have a date this week?
Private, Keenan.
Because you got your little sparkly shirt in the background all hanging out. Ready for the big date. Here you go, Becc. You've been found out.
This is so private. Like if the line of what's private is California, you're in like Russia, like the middle of Russia, like the. Well,
you better work on your geography because Russia is further away from California. You wanted to probably say if the line is California, that I'm in Australia. I've crossed the line. You're going the wrong direction, Becc.
Either way, the line is a dot to you. The line is a dot to you.
No, it's just a question. I just asked a question.
Of what's private and not private. It's a good question, Keenan. Why do you ask?
I just told you. Your sparkly shirt.
No, let's sales this out. It's a good question. Why do you ask?
I just told you. The sparkly shirt in the background.
What would the impact to you be?
To me, there's no impact. Just pure curiosity. Just supportive. Becc. Friends being supportive.
Well, with the spicy start to the podcast, let's move over to the first segment.
We lost 5 people on that alone. We don't hear about that.
I think we probably gained 500.
Yeah, no, we lost 5 men who were hoping they could date you, and then they thought you had a date, and they jetted out.
Okay, with that, we're going on to the first segment of our podcast, which is... Email Teardown. This is the segment where we tear down emails and messages that were sent to Becc and Keenan. Now on to the first message. This one, the subject line is huge fan with a heart emoji. It says, "Hey Keenan, glad to see Keenan at the top of the 10% of sales YouTube channel. I saw your last episode of Top to Bottom podcast. It's a bomb. We built a process that will be 3 to 5x your reach by creating micro content from your long form videos for YouTube Shorts, Insta Reels, TikTok, etc. Just like Gary V. Would love to make Keenan the #1 sales channel in the world. Worth a chat? Warm regards." Keenan, what do you think about this email?
Man, look, there's some things to like about it. Like, they're playing to my ego. How'd you like to be the #1, sales channel? I would like to be the #1 sales channel. The fact that they like the content and love top to bottom, so with some relevancy, as Becc would like to say. So there was some good things about it. But here's what happened. They lost all credibility when they said that they want to start helping me create shorts. I've got shorts. We're adding them every fucking day or every week. So it literally went from interesting to, you lying piece of shit. You have not paid attention to my site. You have not gone out and taken a full assessment of the YouTube page. Because if you had, you would not have said, we'd like to create shorts for you. Because we're already doing it. So they went from here, bam, to here. Lost all credibility and trust.
Mm-hmm. Well, Becc, you have some edits for this. What are your edits for this email?
Yeah, so my edits were oddly in a little bit different of a note. Well, first off, grammatically, it threw me for a loop. He went to, "Hey Keenan," to "glad to see Keenan," which transitioned me to third person.
Well, that fits for me.
Which is a little interesting for me. Something I think he did well, and then I'll go into what I think they didn't do well. What I think they did well is, to Keenan's point, personalization. Like, I would have liked to see, they said, just like Gary V, like hook that into, I noticed that you follow Gary V or that you like Gary V, because I know that, Gary V has been somewhat of an influence. Like, I would leverage that and really punt the personalization home. The main thing that stood out to me, though, is he says that you are top 10 sales YouTube channels. And then he's like, what if I could, get 3 to 5x the reach? So you're stating to him likely that he doesn't have a problem. He's top 10. And then you're like, what if we could 3 to 5x the reach? So I would be reaching out to someone who I think is struggling to get the reach that they deserve, based on the quality of the content. So I would have niched in there. I think he outlined essentially that you aren't someone who likely has a problem and then is sending you a problem-centric email. Keenan, what do you think?
No, I mean, look, for someone like me, right, if I'm the top 10, I should be number 1. So that is a problem, right? And I could probably spin it that, if someone isn't 1 or 2 or 3, depending on the space, let's say you're writing a book, you're not going to be number 1, but I just, gap selling was number 7,000 or something like that overall on Amazon.
Yeah.
Right? That's a big deal. Like, people don't understand. To be 7,000 across Amazon is a big deal. So I might want to get to 5,000. So showing that gap where you are and where you could do more if your content, personality, whatever can get you there. So that piece didn't bother me. What really bothered me was the fact that they started with this whole perception that they know me and they've done their research only to basically undermine the fact that they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do your research because you're offering me shorts. We're doing them every day.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
All right, on to the next one. This is a short one. This one's a message to Becc, and it says, request. Could flip the script, use a senior graphic designer, and then proceeds to send a picture of this. And it's not buffering or anything. That is the exact picture that they sent. Becc, what do you think about this message?
I'm just going to let this one ride.
No! Let this ride. That was good, Becc. I think she's been waiting all week to say that.
No, I haven't. I actually didn't even realize I made the joke until you started clapping. And I was like, piece of candy. That was every once in a while, a blind squirrel gets a nut, but I'm just going to leave this here for people to look at. What do you think?
Yeah, there's nothing to say. I mean, there's no problem. If you're going to try to use your art to show your thing, then you should have made it relevant to you.
Maybe this person thinks that I should be on motorcycles.
Yeah. They could have done a logo redesign. They could have taken a piece of content and changed it around. They could have done anything that you might have been able to use right away. But to put you on a motorcycle, that makes no sense.
Oh, is that supposed to be Becc on a motorcycle?
I don't know. I'm genuinely confused.
Well, anyways.
Much like our intro, I'm just genuinely confused.
Well, on to our next segment of the podcast, which is Sales Mythology. This is the segment where we demystify common myths in the sales industry. Now, the first sales myth of today is no is just the beginning of a sale. Becc, what do you think about this?
Can Keenan lead on this?
Sure,
we'll do it. Hey, this is your one for each episode. You have one each episode. So Keenan, why don't you start on this one?
So I'll be nice. I'll start. Look, I remember I was actually vice president of sales, but someone on my team got a no, and maybe I was tag teaming on the sale. I can't remember exactly, but got a no. And our COO sent me a note, and he goes, "Hey, that no is just the beginning of the sale." And I remember thinking to myself, is this guy fucking just tone deaf? Read the email, man. Like, it is clear that they're not interested. I can't remember the context. I can't remember any of it, okay? But let's just assume to some degree I was at some level unsubconsciously selling at a gap level at some point, right? Or some way. And I remember thinking of this. There is no thing that points to yes. This is clear. So the idea that people think when someone says no is just the beginning is obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
It is pathetic. Now, I get where it came from. If you're product-centric selling and they say, no, I'm not interested in your mouse, I can see why some people say, okay, he doesn't understand enough. Like, no, it's, well, yeah, but wait, there's more. You don't understand. Let me keep going, right? I don't agree with it, but I get where it came from. But if you're properly selling and you're properly diagnosing and you're properly understanding the problem and they say no, you should have probably seen that no coming in the first place. But if you didn't, it is fucking pathetic. Pathetic. that you would think that you should continue to pester the person. I'll leave it at this. Sorry, Becc. I remember when I was a little younger, I went to, I traveled around the world. I went to a bazaar in Turkey. I went to a number of Middle Eastern countries. And you go into the bazaars or the streets, their negotiation is like nothing you've ever seen. It's not even negotiation. It's just, they will just pressure you into buying. And your no is, they don't even hear it. No. And they don't give a shit. They just will keep, as long as they have you in front of them or near them, they will chase you, they'll grab you, they'll do whatever. That is not sales, and we should know better. And we don't even want to look, smell, or taste anything like that level of pressure selling.
Mm-hmm. Becc, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think to Keenan's point, kind of the thesis of it, no can only come up when you're trying to sell them, right? So the root of a term of objection is you're on the offensive, you're trying to sell someone, and they notice it. They notice your agenda, so they throw an object up in your way to slow you down. Not interested, not the right person, no budget, no time, blah, blah. So I heard on a webinar the other day, someone say like, hey, objections are a really good sign, or a no is a really good sign. Totally. Keenan, I wish you would have.
You keep saying this. I wish you, Keenan, but you never send me or invite me or whatever.
Yeah, but I'm watching this and I'm like, am I the only one that think that is like 180% from the truth? That like an objection tells you on a scale of 1 to 10, how much selling they think you're doing.
Yeah.
How salesy they think you are. How much of an agenda to close or get the meeting or book the deal they think you are. So they're going to throw an object up in your way to slow you down. You don't see like a doctor get an objection because their goal is to diagnose. So they're not going to throw an object in your way to get you to from diagnosing appropriately because they know it's to their own benefit. So I'm like, objections, no's, all of that in that school of thought of like, oh, well, a no is a quicker way to a yes. I'm like, I couldn't disagree more. I really couldn't, because I'm like, that just shows you that you're on the path to sell them, close them. They feel it, and so they want to slow you down.
All right, so the next myth for today is a methodology is not required to sell. Becc, would you like to start us off on this one?
I wouldn't, Min.
You're going to.
Kidding. So methodology is not required to sell. I would say it's not technically required, meaning you can sell without one. But I think if you have no system of how you're going about something, then I don't see where the expertise comes in. So methodology to me is just a method of which you're executing something. So, to Gap's point, like if you're trying to identify the gap, trying to identify the current state, the future state, all the things that they've misdiagnosed, et cetera, that's the method of which you're quote unquote selling, so like method acting, for instance. So I'm thinking about if I'm just going into the conversation and I have no like thesis of the conversation, no goal of the conversation, no agenda to the conversation, then like, why am I having the conversation at all? So I'll hear a lot of people come in, and I'll close with this and transfer to Keenan. Hear a lot of people come in and they'll say questions like, what are your priorities that keep you up at night? What are the things that are what are the things that are top of mind for you? Or they'll try to be super empathetic in the beginning, super personal, super kind, super quote unquote rapport building, because they have no actual goal to the meeting. They know that the goal shouldn't be to just close them and to sell. And so I'm like, you can't detach from the outcome. Like the outcome of you want to close them, yes, detach from that. But you should have an outcome to the meeting. The outcome to the meeting is, to Keenan and Gap's point, you should diagnose. You should diagnose what's happening with the buyer at that point in time. So if you don't have a method, I don't see why the person should be jumping on the call with you at all. They might be confused at best of why they took the time to talk with you.
What do you think, Keenan?
Look, I think this concept of should you have you can sell without a method is, Becc, correct me if I'm wrong, is rhetorical, I think, because I say the same thing about corporate cultures. It's not a question of method and no method. If you're selling, you have a method. Yeah. You just may not know what it is, right? There is a method. You can't, like even right now, me talking to you, there's a method to my talking to you, whether it's logical, whether it makes sense, whatever, but you can't avoid it. So if you sell, you have a method. So I think the real question should have been, can you sell successfully? How do you phrase the question again, Min?
A methodology is not required to sell.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what we need to ask in that is a structured we'll go structured methodology required to sell. And I would say yes, because a structured methodology should follow some sense of best practices, or should be built and created around specific observations and insights in what is best practice and what isn't, or what's going to work and what isn't going to work. Mm-hmm. And so from that perspective, I don't believe you can be successful without one, because that means you or somebody took the time to look at a selling environment, break it down, and say, okay, this is going to be best served by this, and this will be best served by that. And because of this, you're going to be most successful. So technically speaking, people sell every freaking day without a structured methodology. They're just not super effective, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why the sales world is actually getting a worse reputation, not a better reputation. Mm-hmm. We're in trouble, people. The sales world is in trouble because what we've done over the last few years around all this emphasis on the top of the funnel and outreach and sales loft and pounding people with emails and pounding them with shitty cadences and pounding them with calls. People are fed up and they're out. They see very little value in salespeople, particularly at the top of the funnel. So it's all because you've lacked a real methodology. So the answer to me is no, you cannot sell without one.
I do think it's bizarre that there is a very well-known, let's call it a beginning contract, where you're setting something at the beginning of the meeting of what you're going to walk through in the meeting. And the reason it was so heavily adopted and widely accepted is people saw an uptick that they're like, okay, this person at least knows what they're doing, that they're going to set this beginning contract. But I'm like, that's sad that caused an increase in conversion, that just saying this is what we're going to achieve in this meeting helps people. Because I'm like, our buyers are scared of the unknown. You know, you're 2 to 3x more scared of the devil that you don't know versus the devil that you do. That's why people don't like to walk around a corner into a dark room. It's not because they know that something's there that's scary. It's because they don't know what's there at all. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, instead of just setting a contract and that being the value of the entire meeting, I'm like, that's one piece of it. But the goal, the agenda of the meeting is to, again, to Keenan's point and to, gap, is like, I have to define and understand this gap and potentially widen it by finding things that they don't know. And if that's not the goal of the meeting, then you're just like, what are you going to do? Like, hang out there, make some compliments and be like, hey, sick shirt, and then like see if it works out and they close. It's just bizarre to me. I'm
not wading into this because I'm going to get punched in the nose.
Yeah, 100%. Good call.
But with respect to our listeners, Arun made a statement. Arun Sanaa, I hope I got that right, Arun, said, or you start with a method as a framework, but you adjust based on how things go. Now, this is going to shock some people, okay? If you start with a method and you have to adjust, it is a fucking horrible method. Mm-hmm. A true methodology should be able to should be effective across the entire sales process. Mm-hmm. There is no time in any moment in any part of the sales process that gap selling should be abandoned, period. Now, whether I like Sandler or not, or whether I like Medic or not, I'm not going to leave my opinions out, but I've seen them, and I could argue that at no time should you have to abandon them. Now, I may not think they work, but that's not the point. They're structured in such that at no point in time should you abandon them. So you are not following a structured method, or at least a good one, if you have to abandon it.
I think why people are doing, sorry, man. I think why people are adjusting the method is because the goal of the method is to sell. So if they start going down the method and they're like, oh crap, I can't sell them, then I have to adjust the method. But in something like Gap, it's like the goal of the method is to diagnose. So like,
at no time do you need to stop diagnosing.
Correct. You're like, I continue to diagnose. I find if there is a diagnosed problem. If there isn't a problem, then you walk. Or if there's a problem that you can't solve, then you walk. That's the end of the meeting. But you don't adjust the method or adjust the diagnosis. Like, that's your goal. What's their self-diagnosis? What's your diagnosis? If there's a difference, and hypothetically you challenge, but you're trying to uncover what is the gap to them, and then what's the gap to you based on the information you're acquiring. But at no point in time does the doctor like transition and say like, oh, okay, well now I have to shift the way that I'm asking questions because I ultimately want you to buy the medication.
Because they don't have cancer, and I'm trying to sell,
So like,
I'm trying to sell radiation. Oh shit, what do I do now? No. Yeah.
Well, with that, we're on to our next segment of this podcast,
And
which
you're welcome,
is
Maroon.
oh,
I got his name right. I was proud. He said, good job. So thanks, bro.
well, on to the next section, which is wait, why is it not? Take it or leave it. It had like a 5-second delay. That was my bad. Well, this is the segments where I introduce common sales tactics, and Keenan and Becc let us know whether they would take it or leave it. So the first one of today is having an opportunity deal score. Keenan, take it or leave it.
Oh my God. Take it. Opportunity deal scores are critical. Similar to gap selling, though. This is my next. What's the word, Becc? When you take something on and you run with it and like like your boy Don Quixote. Like what's the word when? Not my next. What? Okay.
oh, conquest.
Yes, this is my next conquest. Thank you very much. This is my next conquest. So I'm not leaving. I'm not abandoning gap selling and discovery and diagnosis. I'm not doing that. But I just discovered over the last period of time that the biggest opportunity in sales right now is opportunity management and deal management. And an opportunity score is critical. Now, I'll go into it later. I'll let Becc say this. But absolutely, you can't live without an opportunity deal score because you don't know how good that opportunity is. We score leads. Why aren't we scoring deals? And why aren't we scoring deals? Because no one has a real functional methodology that allows them to score them. They have no definitions of what to score. They have no way of scoring within the pipeline. But yes, all day long an opportunity deal score.
Becc, what do you think? Take it or leave it?
For deal scoring, I'm a hard take it as a practice. For deal scoring, how it's done today, I'm a hard leave it. For sure. They're like, when's the last time the person emailed the other person? Or how much are you multi-threading the deal? And I'm like, okay, it's an interesting data point. But if you aren't teasing out, to Keenan's point, like do you have the root cause? Do you have the problem? That's what's
qualitative versus quantitative, right? Becc, today everybody's trying to do it quantitatively and easy qualitative.
Yeah, it's like, do you have all these defined principles that you know from the person? Then I can tell you what's the health of the deal based on the size of the gap that exists, and also do you have those data points at all? So take it if it's deal scoring at large, but leave it how it's done today.
Great job, Becc. Great job.
The next one for today is walking away if a client won't do a discovery with you. Becc, take it or leave it.
I'm going to take it. I would walk away. Yeah. Meaning if they won't do discovery with you, walking away, then I'm going to take it on walking away. Yes, absolutely.
Got you. What about you, Keenan? Take it or leave it?
100,000% take it. Not only am I a take it if they won't do a discovery, I'm also a take it if they demand pricing and demand pricing up front before they take a discovery or something. Nope. Listen, if I say it all the time, discovery is diagnosis. Diagnosis is trying to understand so you can help them. Our job as salespeople is to help them. I say this all the time. Everybody, watch what I do. That was for you, Becc. Watch what I do here. If a buyer will not let you help them, move on. For every 100 deals where 1 or 2 of those might close, 10, 20 won't close. So you're wasting your time. Let that 1 or 2 go. Trust me. The customer won't let you help them. Let them go.
Even if you do sell it, I'm still leave it because you could have misdiagnosed then. And then they buy the product and they blame you because because you weren't the one who dug in.
Yep.
So it's like, usually those deals are like, they're going competitive. They they don't want to do a rip and replace. They just want a competitive quote, or they just want to say they did their due diligence when they quote unquote, they didn't. So
I wish the entire sales industry would do that. And then we can start changing the way buyers deal with us. But we own it. They don't want to talk to us because most people don't know how to do a good discovery. So the buyers see no value. That's the problem. It's our fault.
All right, the last one is having little promotions or giveaways to get people into your pipeline. Keenan, take it or leave it.
Hard, leave it. Hard, leave it. Here's the bottom line. Someone said, oh, I'll give you a $5 gift certificate. I'll give you this. Or a Starbucks card. If you leave with you basically just told me that you believe 45 minutes of my time is worth $5. Go fuck yourself.
Becc, what about you? Take it or leave it.
Same. I'm going to leave it. You know, I've seen a lot of companies do this, and I'm like, by the way, you're broadcasting to your buyer that you don't believe that they'll get any additional value by jumping on a call with you. And so I have to pay them in terms of a Starbucks gift card. And anyone who takes that Starbucks gift card, let me roll the tape forward. Probably not a decision maker, probably doesn't have budget who will take those headphones.
Yeah, because their time is worth more than $5.
All right. And with that, we're on to our next segment of the podcast, my personal favorite, which is
the inbox.
This is the segment where Becc and Keenan answer questions from our audience. And to help with that, I have the trusty mailbox.
The whole mailbox.
100%.
I can't believe you have not put our faces on it yet in something that's not, but it's not that you can see it. That's too clear.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I can't stand that picture.
Yeah, I've been waiting to find a better picture to put on these.
Why don't you just print them out on white paper and stick
Just
them?
like tape
No,
them on?
because I railed him out. I was like, this picture is terrible of me. So I was like,
Do it,
man,
man.
do not
Do
approve this picture.
We'll see we'll see the surprise next podcast.
He's actually honoring my request.
Well, this first question is from Ethan McCausland. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. From Madison, Wisconsin. As an inbound SDR, I am always ahead of quota, have a good work-life balance, and make about 85K OTE, on-target earnings. I was just offered an AE role at my company for about 110 OTE, but our AEs seem like they're always slaving away, putting in extra hours, and still struggling with quota. The extra money is significant, but is it worth it? Thanks in advance. Becc, what do you think about this?
I would have to run discovery. I'm like, worth it in what regard? Now, if you want to become an AE, then a lot of programs are in that condition, meaning most their AEs aren't hitting quota. I was reading a study the other day about the decrease throughout 2022 of AEs that were hitting quota, and it was astounding. It was at like 58% were hitting quota in Q1 of last year, and then it was down to like 22% by Q4. Yeah, totally. So I'm like, welcome to sales. There's a quick way to alleviate that, and the way to alleviate that is to do proper discovery, but yeah, there's a lot of factors in there, but if your guts if you're doing it for the money and your gut, like, you aren't hungry to become an account executive and you then there's too much discovery questions that I would need to ask in the counter to answer the question is the long and short of it. Sorry, that was really disappointing for everyone. Welcome to Top to Bottom. We aim to disappoint. I aim to disappoint. Can you bring it home?
Look, I love the fact. I absolutely love the fact that this cat said, look, I have a great work-life balance. I'm doing well in my existing position. He seems happy the way he wrote it. He seems happy with where he is. So my answer, I agree with Becc. I have a million questions to ask. My answer is going to operate from this perspective. He's young and he's got a future in front of him. So my question would simply be, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Do you want to be an SDR the rest of your life? And do you believe that you have the spending style or the spending discipline and that stuff, that 85K or the equivalent based on inflation, et cetera, that you could live like this the rest of your life? Then fucking great. Don't move. Like literally, don't move. Life is about having fun. Life is about living. Life is not about working to live, right? Now, if he has aspirations and there's things he wants to do, and let's say he wants to be an AE, but this particular job doesn't look good as an AE, go look elsewhere. I don't know why you're being so linear in how you're looking at it. Go be an AE somewhere else. If you're making all your numbers as a BDR now, then you're probably in demand. You could go ship that to be an AE in a different position. Or if you don't want to be an AE, then go do what you want to do. Go fucking play the guitar. I don't care. The answer is, whatever your next move is, make sure you'll be happy doing it. That's the answer.
I will say one thing. The person said they're way past quota and they're an inbound SDR. And I'm like, well, that's marketing's push through. as an AE, you're going to have to outbound. Meaning, if I got 100 MQLs that requested a demo, it makes sense of your past quota. That wasn't really your doing, in my opinion. So I'm like, there's a huge gap between learning how to close and learning how to outbound. So I'd keep that in mind.
Gotcha. Okay. We only have 45 seconds, so I'm not sure if we have enough time for the second question, but I do have a follow-up. For the entry-level SDRs and whatnot who are trying to move up as AEs and who have never got the training in outbound, how do you transition? How do you prepare for that transition?
Transition to outbound or transition to AE?
Transition to outbound.
I'm going to do it quick and you can finish it, Becc. Don't go into outbound. Outbound's dead. Outbound's dead.
Outbound's
Dead.
spicy.
Don't do it.
Becc, what do you think?
Outbound's not dead. It's alive and well. You just need to learn how to do it, in my opinion. But it is it's tough. Tougher to learn.
Oh my goodness. 18 seconds before the bell, and it became the spiciest part of the podcast.
It's like
Outbound is dead.
Our second personal brand war.
Well, with that, we're on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
the challenge.
Now I kind of just want to talk about outbound for the challenge.
Put that in there for one of ours coming up. We'll make it one.
Okay. Sorry, man. Go ahead.
100%. Well, hey, this is the challenge. This is the segment where Keenan and Becc break down a challenging subject within the sales industry. And today's challenge is how to properly coach a deal. Keenan, would you like to start us off on this one?
Yeah, your back pocket sticker with the coin that Becc just
I'm on thin ice.
Yeah. Look, you properly coach a deal. Okay, this is kind of all right. Where I want to start with this? I think the first thing we need to understand, or that I want us to lead with, is I believe, and you will hear me say this multiple times, this is my new conquest, this is my new thing, is deal reviews are drastically undervalued. And I don't know why it took me so long to recognize this. Deal review, deal management, opportunity management, whatever words you want to use, are drastically and critically undervalued and underused as a tool to drive revenue. Okay? There is nothing better that you can do, including discovery, which may surprise people. There's nothing you can do better to increase or accelerate or improve your win rates or conversion rates than deal review. Okay? So you could be leaving 10, 20, 30, 50% of your revenue on the table because organizations now do such a crappy job at this. So in order to properly deal review, you have to have a couple of things in place. One, you have to have a defined methodology, back to where we went before. You must have a defined methodology that is laid out in clear steps, clear information, etc. Not this high-level quantitative bullshit. Oh, when's the next step? What did they say? Is there ban? No, I mean very clear qualitative specifics around the problems, impact, root cause, etc., as well as decision criteria, etc. Right? Two, the management team needs to be highly educated in this, and there needs to be a common understanding of what best practice looks like. It can't change from manager to manager or situation to situation. It has to be embedded, and everybody has to be on the same page. It has to be managed appropriately. Thirdly, you need a tool that will allow you to manage this and provide the reporting and the information or data that tells you which information, which criteria, et cetera, are most probable to the win and which aren't, so the team can start focusing on and making sure they're getting that information and properly moving a deal. And then finally, the information has to be got into the CRM in a way that it can be quickly analyzed, assessed, feedback provided, and evaluated and measured, because if it's sitting on the ether, it's not going to work. So at a high level, you need all of those things, which would then, to our earlier point, create an opportunity score, which then can be evaluated by the stage you're in, that could be evaluated by the probability of close, etc. So there's a lot to that question.
What are those criteria, Keenan, that you're looking for?
So obviously in my world, look, at the end of the day, if you want to use MEDDIC, if you want to use BANT, if you want to use winning by design, I don't really care. But in my world, those things are all qualitative. Let me rephrase it. They're about 80% qualitative. You must start with the problem. How well has the problem been defined? Is that definition in a clear, not enough, like, oh, they're not growing enough or they're missing quota, but specific details. Secondly, there needs to be an impact measured and defined the same way. Thirdly, there needs to be a root cause that's defined and measured in the right way, or multiple root causes that tie back to the problem. Fourthly, there needs to be an actually clear desired outcome. Where are they trying to go? And that has to be defined. Like currently, they're off revenue by 22%, which equates to $6 million. They need to get to $25 million. They're only trading towards one, so there's a $6 million gap. If they don't make that $6 million gap, the impact is whatever that is defined. Bang, bang, bang. The root causes are, right? And all of that has to be there. And the management needs to know what that is, define what that is, and then be able to provide feedback to tell them, go get it if you don't have it. And that's just high level.
Does it impact just conversion in your experience internally, or is it conversion and forecasting too?
Oh, gosh. So it absolutely affects forecasting because those two go hand in hand. If my conversion rates go up, right? So if I go from 20% conversion to 50% conversion, guess what also happens? My forecasting gets better because I'm losing less deals. So just purely by default, it's pretty easy to forecast if I have a 50% close rate. You know what I'm saying? Secondly, it helps with average, what do you call it?
ASP.
Time to close. Yeah, not ASP as much. It can help with
sales cycle.
Average time to close. Sales cycle. Thank you. Because now you are able to assess and work with buyers on why they should buy in the first place, so that deals that will never close are identified early. They're gotten out. I mean, we measure the difference between deals that we lose versus the deals that we close, and it's almost double. Deals that we lose, the average sales cycle is almost twice as long as the deals we win. So we know if we don't close them in 45 days, the probability of closing drops drastically. What we're now learning, because I've adopted this whole concept of deal management, deals in opportunity score, deal score, is that I know that if I don't have a certain deal score, that's not going to close. And I can start to see it coming way in advance.
Hey, Becc, what do you think about this?
I have one last question, then I'll give my take. Is it that they have the inputs at all, or is it based on the inputs themselves that you can predict conversion? Meaning,
can you elaborate?
Meaning, like, are you converting it, or are you predicting it on, oh, they don't even have a root cause in here, current impact, future impact, problem at all, or it's based on this? I can predict based on the inputs, or I can predict the conversion for the rep based on the inputs that they have put in, or is it more so I can predict the conversion based on how many deals they have inputs at all?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both, because it translates into the opportunity score or
Yeah.
the deal score, right?
Yeah.
So if I don't have root cause, my deal scores can only get so far. If I don't have in our world, and anybody can do this, but in our world, the gap is the most weighted, right? So if you don't have the gap, it's almost impossible for you to get to our threshold of what we call green, because the gap is weighted so much. So if you have the gap, but it's not a good gap, then we know that you might make the sale, but it's weakened. If you don't have the gap at all, we know you're in serious trouble, but that is reflected in the deal score. So whether it's gap or problem, impact, root cause, they all play into the deal score. So the lower the deal score, for whatever reason, we know. Now we can extrapolate from that when we have deal scores, I'm making this up, that are below our threshold but still win. Like, well, deal scores that are below 75 that won, almost all of them had at least had the problem.
Right.
Deal scores below 75 that didn't, and that lost, most of them were missing the problem. So we can do it in every direction.
Okay. So my take on deal review or coaching, we can start there. Most coaching sessions that I see, the main problem that I find, let's go AEs running into, or AE leaders running into, is they don't know what to coach to. So the first step of coaching anything is you have to identify something. You have to identify what they're doing wrong, and you have to know what are the things that they're saying or not saying, that are preventing this deal from coming to fruition, either from a forecasting perspective or from a conversion perspective. So what I find is that AE leaders don't know what to identify, and the root cause of it is they're viewing it as what words or what techniques should they be saying to this person to make them want to buy more. So they're like, unless you have a team of 150 statisticians that are studying day in and day out, you cannot prove causation. Best case scenario, you can prove correlation. So they don't know how to identify what's wrong. And then they don't know how to prescribe, essentially like, what's going to change the deal for the rep. So it's all kind of qualitative opinion, and the rep knows that. So they stop listening to them. So that the coaching session turns into like, what are your like a pipeline session? What are your deals? How big are they? Who's the decision maker? What's the next step? Instead, how I view coaching is similar to what Keenan's talking about. Of the principles that you have to identify, you have to coach towards is, did they get a root cause, current impact, future impact? Like, did they get all those principles in general? Did they identify any that the buyer didn't know about beforehand? And then I can tell you the health of the deal. And then hypothetically, like the next step of the deal, if you missed a root cause, I need to coach you to go get that back, so that you can understand it to begin with. But that's how I view like coaching overall is like, did you get these principles? Did you identify anything that they didn't know about? And then I can quantify the gap for you and tell you where you need to move forward as a AE. Right on time. Right on time.
Good job, Becc. That was good. That was good, Becc. Nice work.
Right on time.
Well, on to our last segment of the podcast, which is the rant. Oh, let me decide who's gonna go first. Let me think. Okay, let's go here. Now, Keenan, what is your rant for today?
I think my rants always have a common theme. And to the untrained eye, it would appear that I am a bitter, angry man. But to the trained eye, it is actually coming from a place of love. But my rant today is on the topic, once again, of personal accountability. And the way I want to go with this is, too many of us are chicken shits. We have let society make us into victims. Turn us into victims. It is not uncommon for a salesperson to say they want a job, and I'm going to talk about salespeople, but it goes across the entire spectrum, to reach out to a company and say, I want this job, and they'll go through the interviews, and they'll convince that person they can do the job, and they can get the job done. And then they're there for 1, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9 months and almost sell nothing. And then they quit. It costs that company $30, $50, $80, $90, $100,000 to give you a fucking seat. And you couldn't do the job. But you sat there and you looked at that hiring manager and said how you can do it. And this isn't just for sales. I've watched clients, I've watched friends, I've watched us here, watch people come in and say they can do it, and they can't do it. And they waste your money. Not because you didn't give them a chance, not because you provided a toxic environment, but they just couldn't get it done. They didn't want to put in the time. They didn't want to learn. And the reason they couldn't get it done is they couldn't self-assess enough in the beginning. They weren't honest enough with themselves in the beginning. Like, mate, I'm not quite as good as I think I am. Or this position is, I got myself in a position higher than me. I need to double down, triple down, quadruple down. This company paid me to do a job, and I have a responsibility to get it done for them. Just because I'm showing up and going home doesn't mean I'm doing my job. But I watch it everywhere. I literally had a person reach out to me the other day, and they said, hey, they're looking for a job. There'd be a great leader, a great trainer, or something like that. I'm saying, oh, have they considered becoming a certified gap trainer? Yeah, but now they just want a full-time job. You know what that code for me is?
They want base. They want base without accountability.
Yeah, I want to make sure I make money regardless of whether or not I produce. That's what they're saying. Whether or not I produce, I want to make sure I'm getting paid. And I'm tired of it. 90% of most people are getting paid more than they're delivering. And what's even worse, and again, I'm a good liberal, so shuck some liberals. What's even worse is we're creating a culture big bad business, and that we're supposed to entice, or we're supposed to accept, not entice, we're supposed to accept that a job is a right and that we shouldn't expect that they deliver. We're actually making it fucking worse. People, own your shit. Take some pride. Take some pride. I remember once I read this, I gave it to my kids a little while ago, and then I'll stop the rant. It said, I don't care what you do, just be the goddamn best at it. We've lost that. We've lost that. Everybody tells themselves they're the best. That's the problem. Convince themselves of the best, ignoring the data.
All right, Becc, what is your rant for today?
I love what he's saying. I love what he's saying because it's, again, the outside looking in, it's like, okay, you're an entrepreneur, right? So I'd be like, if you flip the hat and you put the hat on this person, and you said like, hey, what would you do in this situation if someone did this to you? They'd be like, oh, well, I would never it would be a huge impact to them. They understood like, hey, whatever. And I'm just taking me as a microcosm. If I pay you to go do something and there's no output, like look at it from my perspective. You can give me excuses, stories, or whatever the reasons why you can or can't do something, but all I'm left with is the reality of what you produced. So I'm like, when I get to work with men, I'm left with the reality of what he produced, which is very high, very high. So I'm like, I'm thankful to those kind of situations. But anywho, my rant is, it's not necessarily a rant, but it is a focus of a game changer for me has been, and it's been exposing for me, is are you, I'll never forget, I think it was in a webinar, Keenan, you said not using the word if, and like someone says, I have a problem, and 100% of reps blow past that and basically say like, okay, I'm going to move on to impact or whatever. And the importance of defining everything and uncovering everything, defining everything that they're saying. I listened to a call the other day and the person said like, oh yeah, we've had success in this other area, with this other team. Now we're going to go international. So we want to buy this product to see if we can duplicate that success. The rep blows right past it.
Never asked to find success.
Totally. That I'm like, your first step is what was the success? What do you mean by success? Was it success in terms of conversion? Was it success
Can you
in terms
please
of
define success?
meetings? Was it SQLs? Was it the answer, you simply don't know. You're completely left in the dark.
Yeah.
And the reason that this popped up in my brain is there is the most recent season of The Bachelor. There is a Bachelor, and there's I think 6 or 7 girls left.
You love The Bachelor.
I know. I hate that I love The Bachelor. And one of the girls at the second or third episode, she was giving all these interviews. She's like, I really don't know where I'm at with Zach. Like, I don't think that he's digging the relationship, and I don't think, And she's an AE for a living. She's an account executive. So she goes into this session with him, this conversation with him, and she was like, yeah, so I just want to call it out. I don't think you're feeling it. I don't think that you see a path forward. And he was like, what are you talking about? I get butterflies in my stomach every time you walk in the room. You're actually my number one. You're a front runner for me. I really enjoyed our conversations. What stood out to me is I'm like, she had no freaking clue. Why? She had never asked any questions in any session with him. All she had done was tell him how amazing he was, blah, 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 but never asked any questions and listened. So I'm like, when I'm in a conversation, if they say I have a success, I have a problem with my NPS score. My first question, I'm like, Keenan, I'm going to pick on you. What would your first question be? I have a problem with my NPS score. What would your first question be?
Could you tell me about your NPS score and why it's a problem?
What's your NPS score? Right. It's like you anchor there and you start there. And I think defining things is a huge momentum in your conversations, and it helps you do nothing other than diagnose. So the importance of that, it's critical to any single conversation, is helping understand what is happening in their current state. Like, don't worry about the impact yet. Don't worry about, necessarily like root cause yet. Don't worry about any of that stuff, or what's the thing that was the final snap that made them want to buy. Start at the beginning. When they say they have a problem, yeah, we've seen a lot of success. Yeah, we have pretty high conversion. What does pretty high mean? They might think pretty high is 10%. And you're like, actually pretty high for your ASP is really 40%, all variables staying the same. When they say we have a really low reply rate, and they say I have a reply rate of, I'm like, what's the reply rate? And they're like, it's 10%. I'm like, that's actually way above industry average. It's the importance of defining. I'm like, define. If you're starting a statement with if, then I'm like, you have to start over. You shouldn't be saying if you're selling into EMEA. It's like the question that needs to in real time work through a question. Are you selling into EMEA? And I feel like from a silver bullets perspective, I would just recommend, it has changed my conversations to, it's a conversation of understanding all of a sudden. So that is my rant. There's not a ton of.
Oh, Becc, you made my day. I just love watching your journey through get selling, because every time we talk, you just go deeper, and you're like, oh my God. I have a whole chapter on this piece, a whole section on open-ended answers and define everything. And I just love that light bulb has just gone off now.
Well, it's just like, I want to understand that before I even move forward in the conversation. I should have 6 or 7 questions about what do they mean by success?
Yep.
Like, what are they trying to duplicate?
Yep.
Is it duplicatable? Why do they need a new tool to duplicate a success if they already had success without the tool? Like, a lot of questions in my head, but I'm like, just get your arms around the ambit of the problem. Just start there. Start there. That's the rant.
Well, that's our podcast.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. I am Keenan, your host.
And I am Becc. See you next week.
Peace out.